This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
And they're off. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. It's a busy getaway day for the 4th of July holiday. Gas prices are down. That means traffic is up, way up. In fact, a record number of us will travel at least 50 miles from home from now through Sunday.
The TSA posting that 6 of the top 10 travel days all time have taken place in 2025. That includes 2 in the last week.
Sam Brock at LaGuardia Airport in New York City suggests if you're flying anywhere today, better get to the airport early. If you're driving, you might want to wait till late tonight or first thing in the morning. Those roads are jam-packed for the holiday weekend. It's on to the House for President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill.
The House will be in order.
Speaker Mike Johnson expecting the multi-trillion-dollar spending package will pass.
This is no longer just a House bill. It's not a Senate bill. It's the bill of the people, of the hardworking American people, and we are going to deliver it.
Maryland Republican Andy Harris chairs the House Freedom Caucus.
This is not going to sail through the House. We're going to have to negotiate with the Senate one more time. We'll get there eventually, but I don't think it's going to be in the next couple days.
Harris is not happy the bill adds trillions to the deficit. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
This is the signature piece of President Trump's domestic agenda. This is more than a tax bill because it also includes border, it includes defense, it includes school choice.
The president wants the package on his desk by the 4th of July. Bryan Kohberger in a Boise, Idaho courtroom today to plead guilty to the murders of 4 University of Idaho college students. They were stabbed to death in their off-campus apartment in November of 2022. The plea deal has upset many victims' families. Former state prosecutor Elliot Feelig.
I understand the objection, but there are so many things that can go wrong at a trial, even what looks like a rock crusher case. So when you have a defendant who's willing to accept responsibility, it's hard to see a prosecutor passing up that opportunity.
Kohberger copped a plea deal to avoid the death penalty in another high-profile criminal case. Media mogul Sean Diddy Combs was convicted of 2 of the 5 criminal charges he faced at a 2-month trial in New York City. Diddy was acquitted of the most serious charges, that being racketeering. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu holding high-stakes talks on Monday with President Trump at the White House. Israel has endorsed a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza and is demanding Hamas return all the hostages it took during the October 7th, 2023 invasion. The University of Pennsylvania has just banned transgender athletes from girls' sports. It's a big deal, says Education Secretary Linda McMahon. She says this came after a settlement with the Trump administration.
There is no room for men and women's sports, not only during the competition, but also in the locker room and other intimate spaces.
The Ivy League school also stripping transgender swimmer Leah Thomas of all the medals that controversial athlete won. Women's sports activist Riley Gaines lost to Thomas in a national championship 3 years ago.
I feel vindicated. So it is a fantastic day, of course, for sanity, for common sense, but I think more broadly for women.
Under this agreement, UPenn will restore all individual swimming records to all female athletes who lost to Leah Thomas. UPenn will also send an apology letter to each of those swimmers. President Trump wants to reopen the infamous Alcatraz prison off the coast of San Francisco. It's been closed since the early 60s. Trump wants to use it to house illegal immigrants. He made that suggestion while touring Alligator Alcatraz yesterday. That's a detention facility for migrants in the Florida Everglades. The man who put the Tella in Evangelist has died. Tella evangelist Jimmy Swaggart has passed away at the age of 90. He pioneered bringing the church into people's living rooms through television. Correspondent Kate Fisher.
He became one of America's most influential televangelists and a household name by the late 1980s.
Swaggart, who's a cousin to the late rock legend Jerry Lee Lewis, began his television ministry in the early 1970s in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
At its peak in the mid-1980s, Jimmy Swaggart Worldwide Ministries had a television presence in more than 140 countries.
Swaggart founded the Sun Life Broadcasting Network, which his family still runs. A prostitution scandal in the 80s rocked that ministry. The televangelist was eventually defrocked by the Assemblies of God Church. While gas prices are lower this Independence Day weekend, you might have a beef with the cost of that backyard cookout. Just in time for the summer grilling season, ground beef prices are at a record high. Ranchers have been dealing with drought, high grain prices, and inflation. It's forcing many to reduce their herds. Still to come on the Noon Report, ICE at the fair, new pen policy, and SUNY Reconnect.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. A good chance to dry out across our region today in the wake of yesterday's showers and thunderstorms. I'll be back with the complete forecast with an eye toward Independence Day coming up.
All right, Kevin, we'll look for you in about 10 minutes. With record travel expected this 4th of July, state police want to make sure that you get to where you're going safely. The annual holiday crackdown on dangerous drivers is underway in both New York and PA, and that will continue through Sunday. The New York State Fair is fast approaching, and fair officials are making it clear, crystal clear. ICE agents must identify themselves with fair administrators before conducting any immigration enforcement operation.
We applaud the State Fair for actually taking this step.
That's Murad Awauda with the New York Immigration Coalition.
They put guidelines in place, and their guidelines are clear. They don't want ICE operating at the State Fair warrantlessly.
Immigrants make up a large percentage of the State Fair workforce. ICE agents say they're not planning to conduct any raids during the fair, which runs August 20th through September 1st in Syracuse. A spokesperson says their focus is on dangerous criminals who are in this country illegally. As mentioned earlier, the University of Pennsylvania is banning transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. UPenn will also strip transgender swimmer Leah Thomas of all her records and remove a national title from 2022. More from correspondent Christopher Cruz.
Penn has agreed to restore all individual Division I swimming records and titles to female athletes who lost to Thomas and send them a personalized apology letter.
The U.S. Education Department says UPenn violated the rights of female athletes by permitting biological males like Leah Thomas to compete in girls' sports. Zohran Mamdani's surprise victory in the New York City mayoral primary has turned the political universe upside down. His socialist policies are causing concern, however. Now many in the Big Apple say they want out of there. Molly Hemingway is a conservative columnist with The Federalist.
This guy comes in, an actual member of the Democrat Socialists of America, and they openly call for the end of capitalism, and he's poised to become mayor of the city most associated with capitalism in the United States. It's a disaster in the waiting if people go down this path.
Mamdani's endorsed community land trusts. He wants government-run grocery stores, has called for defunding the police, and supports a $30 an hour minimum wage. He also says there should be no billionaires. Nursing schools in New York are seeing an uptick in applications thanks to the SUNY Reconnect program. It offers free community college to students between the ages of 25 and 55 who are seeking degrees in high-demand fields like nursing. Sarah Gaffney is a spokesperson for the Onondaga Community College near Syracuse.
So at this point for fall, we do have a wait list for the nursing program, but we have other healthcare programs that are also eligible that can either prepare you for nursing, or maybe you'll find a different career path that suits your needs a little bit better.
Older students pursuing degrees in technology and artificial intelligence are also eligible for free tuition under the SUNY Reconnect program. So what's the latest on the Pennsylvania budget battle?
Reality is the parties are still far apart in negotiations. We're not at the finish line just yet.
The deadline was yesterday. Republican Representative Tim O'Neill, Democratic House member member Jordan Harris.
Listen, I've always said that more important than a budget deadline date was making sure that we have a budget that meets the priorities of the people of Pennsylvania.
School districts say they are frustrated that Harrisburg cannot seem to get its fiscal house in order here. Allison Mathis is president of the Pennsylvania School Boards Association.
Year after year, school districts and taxpayers face delays in budget passage, which is undermining public confidence in elected officials.
But Tim O'Neill says there's no need for schools to panic here.
We've got plenty of time to figure this out before any school district should be nervous. If they continue to budget fiscally responsibly, there should be no issue late into the year.
Pennsylvania hasn't had an on-time budget in more than 3 years. An early poll puts New York Governor Kathy Hochul way ahead of potential GOP challenger Elise Stefanik in next year's gubernatorial contest. A closer look at those numbers from correspondent Sarah Lee Kessler.
The Siena College poll shows Hochul leading Stefanik 47% to 24% in a potential matchup. Pollsters included the North Country Congresswoman and 2 other potential GOP candidates in next year's race, Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman and Rockland County Congressman Mike Lawler. Governor Hochul is also strongly favored among potential Democratic challengers, Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado and Bronx Congressman Richie Torres. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
All right, Sarah, thank you. If Pennsylvania politicians get their way, opting out of introductory offers may become a thing of the past in the Keystone State.
Tired of free trials that quietly turn into charges? So is the Pennsylvania House. Lawmakers voted 159 to 43 on Tuesday to flip the script, requiring companies to let customers opt in after free or introductory offers instead of automatically enrolling them. If customers do nothing, they will automatically be opted out. Representative Lisa Borowski of Delaware County said companies are simply betting customers will forget, costing consumers millions in unwanted services each year. All Democrats and more than 50 Republicans backed the bill, which now heads to the Senate for consideration. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. The Red Cross of Central New York is asking folks to give the gift of life today. It's hosting its yearly Heroes Blood Drive from noon till 6 p.m. at the Solvay Fire Department, the Fulton Manlius Fire Department, the Hamilton First Baptist Church, and the St. John the Evangelist Church. Summertime is the typical time when blood donations lag. You can schedule an appointment to give the gift of life. All you got to do is go to the website, redcrossblood.org. That's redcrossblood.org. Sports next. It's the 2-minute drill right here on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon. I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, what a difference one championship makes to another. We begin on the grass courts of Wimbledon. Not a good start, not a good day for the United States women. Coco Gauff just won the French Open 3 weeks ago. She was the number 2 seed in the tournament. Gone in straight sets. Gauff made mistake after mistake, ending with 29 unforced errors. Also losing yesterday, number 3, Jessica Pegula. She's gone. And this marks the first time ever in the Open era that 2 of the top 3 seeds have lost their opening matches in a major championship. Let's talk baseball and the Yankees. It was Canada Day up north, and the Blue Jays celebrated it in a loud way, thumping New York 12-5. George Springer celebrated more than anybody else, going 3 for 4. He hit 2 home runs and had a career-high 7 RBIs. In Pittsburgh, the Pirates won their 5th straight game, and for the 2nd straight game, they shut out the Cardinals. Henry Davis drove in the game's only run with a sac fly in the 8th inning. Elsewhere around Major League Baseball, the Athletics, Rangers, and Royals picked up wins in the American League. In the National League, Phillies, Padres, Brewers, Mets games were rained out. The D-backs beat the Giants 8-2. Interleague action saw the Marlins, Angels, Cubs, Astros, and Dodgers all win. Finally this, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Yesterday was the day that the New York Mets had to pay the 62-year-old Bonilla $1,193,248.20. And they will do that every July 1st through 2035. You gotta love those deferred salaries. That is a look at sports.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Randy. Bobby Bonilla. Wow, there's a blast from the past. Still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. A closer look at parental rights at the U.S. Supreme Court. What next for that big, beautiful bill, and did Diddy do it? We have a verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs case right after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Last week, Zoran Mamdani secured the Democratic nomination for New York City mayor. The 33-year-old assemblyman gained a lot of traction in the final days of the primary contest to beat former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo by 7 points. As one article put it, Mamdani chose, quote, TikTok over talk shows, first wooing influencers and young people before eventually even winning most of the upper middle class white vote. Mamdani ran as a Democratic Socialist, a political party that U.S. voters have never yet put into power. That made his win even more shocking, considering that New York City is one of the most capitalist cities in the world. And Mamdani has promised to establish government-run grocery stores, provide free bus fare and free childcare, to freeze low-rent buildings, to hike minimum wage to $30 an hour, to shift the tax burden to, and I quote here, richer and whiter neighborhoods, and to use $65 million of taxpayer money to pay for transgender surgeries. In addition to his radical social and economic policies, Mamdani's ideologies about Israel and the West should also be noted. After Tel Aviv, Israel, the New York metro area is, after all, the largest Jewish community in the world. And since the massacre on October 7th, 2 years ago, the largest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust, protesters in New York and elsewhere have threatened and intimidated Jews, voicing their support for both Palestine and Hamas with genocidal chants like From the River to the Sea and Globalize the Intifada. In Mamdani's first social media post on October the 8th, the day after the attacks, he blamed not Hamas, but the Israeli government for the attacks. And when pressed in interviews about the chants, he claimed that Globalize the Intifada only reflects a desire for equality and equal rights. But he also said that as mayor, he'd arrest Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu if he ever came to New York City. Still, perhaps most shocking about this nomination is that less than 25 years after thousands of New Yorkers died at the hands of Islamists on 9/11, voters have now put a proud Muslim in line for executive power. But Mamdani isn't a westernized or liberal Muslim. He's a Muslim in the mold of London or other European politicians who secure for Islam privileged status through anti-blasphemy laws and socialist policies. For example, his campaign promises included an 800% increase in funding for hate crime programs. He's an example of the unusual alliance between the far left and radical Islam that's been a feature of European politics for some time now. According to one Australian Muslim cleric, Islamists vote for the left, even supporting abortion and pro-LGBTQ policies, because the left is easier to manipulate. And perhaps that's the reason, or perhaps it's just because how deeply progressives actually hate the West. Whether or not Mamdani becomes mayor in November, the fact that such an inexperienced politician with an unabashed socialist and Islamic agenda has gotten this far politically this fast, that's significant. Worldview matters, and not just in politics, but in every other aspect of life, especially public life. And that includes for citizens. The ability to recognize ideas and their consequences is an essential aspect of good citizenship. Also, to paraphrase Lewis, solid policies and principled public servants built on what's true are needed, if for no other reason than bad ones exist, and they need to be countered. New York City is no exception. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you very much. Outside we go next. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Plenty of sunshine. High temperatures, low 80s. Tonight, starlight gives way to increasing clouds. We're down in the 60s. Tomorrow, plenty of clouds, a couple of showers and thunder showers. High temperatures, mid-70s to the middle 80s. Nice day on Friday for Independence Day. Mainly sunny in Pennsylvania. Sun and some mixed clouds in New York. High temperatures, 70s to near 80.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report. I'm your host, Bob Price. Appreciate you being with us today. A lot to talk about Tuesday, the second day of July. The University of Pennsylvania has just agreed to ban transgender athletes from female sports. This is a huge deal. The U.S. Education Department had charged UPenn with violating the rights of female athletes. That Ivy League school must also restore all the individual swimming records to female athletes who lost to Leah Thomas, a biological male who competed on the UPenn women's swim team. UPenn has also agreed to send a personalized apology letter to each of those female swimmers. It's back to the House for President Trump's budget bill. The U.S. House could give final approval today to the self-described big, beautiful bill. House Speaker Mike Johnson.
We got a clear mandate from the people in November to do this. President Trump ran on a clear set of priorities and promises, and we did as well. And this is the vehicle to deliver it. We're almost there at that finish line.
Correspondent Ryan Noble says getting past that finish line will be a heavy lift for the House.
And it seems at every stage of this process, this bill has inched forward, but by the narrowest of margins. And already there are signs that passing this massive spending package through the House will be no easy task.
The multi-trillion-dollar spending package extends the Trump tax cuts and boosts funding for the border as well as military readiness. Critics worry it will gut Medicaid and could force the closure of rural hospitals. The jury in the Sean Diddy Combs criminal case reaching a verdict today following his 2-month trial in New York City. That hip-hop mogul found guilty on 2 of the 5 charges he faced. Combs was acquitted of the most serious charge, racketeering. Brian Kohberger in court today to plead guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. That plea deal will spare him the death penalty. Chanley Painter at Fox News has more from the federal courthouse in Boise, Idaho.
There will be a sentencing date that will be set likely a month out from now where he will receive those 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. And this is all to save his life, right? This is to take the death penalty off the table.
Kohberger stabbed to death 4 University of Idaho students in their off-campus apartment 3 years ago. President Trump urging Hamas to accept what he calls the final proposal to a 60-day ceasefire with Israel. Mr. Trump posting on Truth Social that he hopes it will bring peace to Gaza. He also warned that if Hamas does not accept this, the conflict will only get worse. More than 56,000 people have died in this conflict, which was started by Hamas when it invaded Israel in 2023. Fireworks may be an Independence Day staple, but unfortunately they can be dangerous and sometimes deadly.
In 2024, over 14,000 firework-related injuries were reported, most involving the hands, head, and ears. 11 people were killed. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is hoping to turn things around with a reminder to the public to never let children play with fireworks, keep a bucket of water or a hose close by in case of a fire, and carefully follow instructions on packaging when handling fireworks. For more information, go to cpsc.gov. I'm Michael Kastner.
All right, good advice. Thank you, Michael. Lifeguards will be getting some help from drones at a beach on Long Island this summer. That's because shark sightings have been commonplace there. Scott Pringle has this report.
State officials say 20 drones are being made available to look for sharks and swimmers in distress at Robert Moses State Park this summer. Randy Simmons with New York State Park says there is a protocol in place if a shark is spotted.
All swimmers are clear from the water. That's number 1. Number 2, watercrafts and drones are deployed instantaneously to that area for a quick scan. Number 3, they are capable of taking photos.
And then swimmers will be allowed back in the water after the last shark sighting. Scott Pringle, New York.
The childhood home of Pope Leo XIV has been sold to the town of Dalton, Illinois. Sale of that tiny post-war home, some 20 miles south of Chicago, was approved by the village board for an undisclosed price. The Pope's parents bought the 3-bedroom brick home back in 1949. The entire block where the Pope once lived is now being turned into an historical site. This is the Noon Report on Family Life.
unpacking a key U.S. Supreme Court ruling. That's what we're doing this week here on Real Answers, a regular Wednesday feature during the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues that matter to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Welcome back, Chris.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
Always a pleasure to have you here. Parental rights got a big, if not unanimous, affirmation from the highest court in the land. They ruled 6-3 last week that parents have a fundamental right to direct the care, custody, and control of their children, something that's shockingly been rather in question in recent years.
Absolutely. And, one of the key things to know about this case is two things were highlighted. The first was it was right along party lines, or let's say ideological lines. The 6 conservative-leaning justices ruling in favor of the parental rights, whereas the 3 liberal judges ruled more in favor of the schools being able to decide what your children learn. So for all parents, really, this is a fantastic ruling that's going to have far-reaching ramifications, especially for Christians and other faiths, too, that do not want to have certain agendas shoved down their throats, to use the common vernacular of the day.
Yeah, okay, we should probably quickly recap. This actual specific case was a ruling in Maryland that parents could opt their children out of a public school system there, teaching lessons that contain themes about homosexuality and transgenderism if they feel the material conflicts with their faith. And a lot of parents there feel exactly that way.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you're going to find these sentiments shared by parents across the nation. It's just unreal that how in the past 15 years or so, we have seen a significant shift in the cultural institutions and the educational institutions away from parents being able to not only know what their kids are being taught, but have any kind of say or being even informed. So this is just a tremendously huge ruling. It really is a blessing that the Supreme Court gave parents back the rights to their own children, basically. So this is just a phenomenal ruling, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, a lot of folks are, for sure. Even teacher unions seem to be split on whether that high court ruling was a good thing, which is concerning in and of itself. There certainly are different schools of thought, pardon the pun. I guess a key point here, among many, is that having rights as a parent isn't the same as exercising those rights.
Exactly. And that's one thing that all parents need to do, is understand what their role is from this point forward, and to communicate with their school boards and their administrators of their local school districts and find out exactly how they're going to communicate to the parents, or how are they going to be able to opt their children out from certain types of instruction, because you have to, as a parent, be aware that there is going to be a role for you to play in this. It's not going to be an automatic. They're not going to send home flyers or announcements letting you know. You're going to have to find out how to go about exercising your role as a parent if you do want to opt your children out. So I'd strongly encourage you to connect with your administrators, connect with your school board members. But something I really want to enforce very firmly with folks is to make sure you drive home the idea that you opting out in no way means that you hate the people who hold the opposing viewpoints. This is not a real strategy of folks to say, well, if you disagree with me, that must mean you hate me, or if you don't support me, or you don't support my views, then you're against me. That's just a total strategy from the enemy. We have to really make sure that when we're communicating about this, we're doing it with grace, yet firmly, and trying to drive home that point that just because we hold to biblical values that others do not appreciate, that we're not hating the other people. We're just saying this is not what we believe in our faith, and that does not mean that we hate folks who do hold the other values. So that's something we really need to communicate, because that strategy of the enemy is going to be continuing to be used through all of this.
Well stated. You're listening to Real Answers. I'm Mark Webster, along with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. We're talking about the implications of last week's ruling on parental rights and controlling what kids are and aren't taught in public schools. And just to follow up then, Chris, it comes down to really having to be very active these days. I mean, we used to just send our kids off to school and trusted the teachers and everybody there had nothing but our kids' best interests at heart, but defining those best interests has certainly changed over time.
We cannot let our guard down, Mark. We have to be very vigilant. And one of the other Supreme Court justices, Amy Coney Barrett, had pointed out, too, that this shift recently in our society that has been capitalized on by not only lower federal court justices, but also the Supreme Court justices, represents something called judiciary imperialism, basically activism from these legal establishments that are really meant to protect all citizens. And I give her a lot of credit for pointing out that this is a trend that has occurred and that needs to stop. The judges at all levels need to stop acting on their own agendas and enforce laws and be impartial in deciding cases. And I was very happy to see that she pointed that out.
So to wrap it up, is in terms of parenting, we've mentioned that you really do need to be very vigilant anymore.
Yes.
And anything that maybe slips through the cracks at school has to be counteracted just by active parenting back at home, too.
Back at home, absolutely. Find out, get around the dinner table, talk to your kids about what they're learning every day. Start doing it at a young age. You know, I've got my young guys, and we sit down at our table every night and say, hey, what'd you do today? What was your favorite part of the day? What did you learn about today? If you get them in the habit of doing that early, it's going to be a whole lot easier to continue that trend later on when they get to be older, especially when they get into those all critical teen years. That's going to be a real battleground right there. But start it early, keep asking them, keep getting involved in your school districts, and we can't let our guard down. We got to stay involved and stay informed.
Well said. You've been listening to Real Answers, a Wednesday feature of the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues important to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Thanks again, Chris.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, thank you very much. Great discussion today. You can subscribe, listen to, and share Real Answers, along with all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. The cold front that helped produce showers and thunderstorms of late and some flooding rains again in parts of southeastern Pennsylvania has departed. Higher pressure has built in and the result of a pleasant day today. Another cold front is on the way for tomorrow. It's weaker, meeker, but a couple of showers and rumbles are expected, but its swift movement will preclude it lingering, and we think still the 4th of July around our area is going to shape up very nice weather-wise. For this afternoon, plenty of sunshine. High temperatures, low 80s. Tonight, starlight, it gives way to increasing clouds. We're down in the 60s. Tomorrow, plenty of clouds, a couple of showers and thunder showers. High temperatures, mid-70s to the middle 80s. Nice day on Friday for Independence Day. Mainly sunny in Pennsylvania. Sun and some mixed clouds in New York. High temperatures, 70s to near 80.
All right, we'll take it. Happy birthday, America. And finally at noon, weather watchers warning we could be looking at a hotter than normal summer these next few months. Reporter Bree Tennis says that's too bad because if we're honest, most of us prefer the cold over the heat.
According to a YouGov poll, 53% of Americans would rather be too cold than too hot. The poll found people would rather reach for layers to maintain body heat than shed clothing to keep cool. The CDC says both hot and cold makes your body work harder, which is good for metabolism, but it might be best to embrace the cold because there's only so much clothing you can take off. I'm Bree Tennis.
That's what I always say. Thank you, Bree. And that's our world, the world we live in. Wednesday, the 2nd day of July. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.